I want to start off the way we kind of ended on Saturday in class with Carl. We were dissecting a speech from Malcolm X. It is known as the Ballot or the Bullet speech, the Ballot of the Bullet speech delivered in April of 1964. And Luke Campbell, y'all know him as Uncle Luke, Luther Campbell, he of the Florida booty scene, he of the, debaucherous music and, Doodle Brown and all of that, raised a question this weekend that got a lot of attention. And I thought it was interesting that he asked a question, just give me 5 reasons why Black people should vote. And then a more valid question, give me 5 things that the Democrats have done for Black people specifically. And so I just want to read from Ballot of the Bullet, which gets a lot of controversy because, it's either or. And for a lot of people, like, not the bullet. No bullet. No, that's scary. That's violent. What are you saying is that give me freedom or give me death. Give me freedom or give me death. I remember that being a rallying cry that led us to America, right? That was the freedom rally. Give me freedom, taxation without representation. So if you live somewhere and you're paying taxes and you have no representation, you don't have any of the services, you have none of the things that your vote should bear you, give me freedom, give me liberty, or give me death. So Malcolm says, by ballot, I mean freedom. Don't you know? I disagree with Lomax. Brother Lomax was the brother that introduced him in this speech. He had already broken away from the Nation of Islam. This is April of 1964. He said, I disagree that the ballot is more important than the dollar. Can I prove it? Yes. Look in the United Nations. There are poor nations in the UN, yet those poor nations can get together with their voting power and keep the rich nations from making a move. They have one nation, one vote. Everyone has an equal vote. And when those brothers from Asia and Africa and the darker parts of the earth get together, their voting power is sufficient to hold Sam, Uncle, in check, or Russia in check, or some other section of the earth in check. So the ballot is most important. He said it's more important than the dollar. This is Malcolm X, radical Malcolm X, 1964, 60 years ago almost. He said, right now in this country, 1964, if you and I, 22 million African Americans, and that number is greater now, that's what we are, Africans who are in America, you're nothing but Africans, nothing but Africans. In fact, you'd get farther calling yourself African. I'm going to come back to this because this is an important thing, but I want to get back to the dollar being more, the ballot being more important than the dollar. Let me welcome to the show. She's going to be with us for the whole hour. So y'all want to call in 866-801-8255. I invited her here to do a planning strategic session live on the air. We're going to talk about Uncle Luke and what the response to him. And we're also going to talk about, because tomorrow's election day in Georgia and other places, we're going to talk about what our value is at that ballot that Malcolm said more important than the dollar. Let me welcome CEO of Center for Employment Justice, former candidate for the Congress in Florida. Let me welcome Esquire Pam Keith, attorney at law. Hi.
Hey, Karen. Such a pleasure to be here with you again.
Great to see you. Great to see you. Before we get into all of that, your thoughts on the ballot or the bullet, the ballot being more important than the dollar?
I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, if it wasn't, they wouldn't spend so much money stopping us from voting.
I've been saying that, and it seems to have fallen on deaf ears to the point where I find it, and I'm going to say this, Uncle Luke, I'm not going to get my political direction from Uncle Luke, anybody that you could put into a glass of Hennessy. I'm not going to get my political direction from anybody who calls themselves at 50 Diddy. I'm not going to get my political leanings from anyone who looks like Basquiat, who's trying to evoke Basquiat and become the next Basquiat, but has no drawing artistic abilities whatsoever, but is a pretty decent rapper. I'm not getting my information or my political direction from a basketball player. I'm not going to get it from anybody, and not even a politician. Let me just say there's not even a Barack Obama can give me any political direction right now. I'm actually going to take my direction from Malcolm X, who was very strategic in this ballot or bullet, which we're going to break down some more of later on in the show. But Uncle Luke asked a question that I thought was a good question. Give me five things. Give me five. How did he start it? It was a tweet.
It was a tweet, and I answered the tweet, by the way.
Did you? Okay. Tell us.
Thoughts about it. Okay, so first thing, I want people to understand context. Now, I want to give my certain respect to Uncle Luke because I'm a Floridian Black person. If you're a Floridian Black person, you understand the impact that he has on the community of South Florida. It's not just his rap story, right? Like Uncle Luke has been effective leader, an effective spokesperson, and a contributor to South Florida in a variety of ways. So I want to take that from him. But I want to educate people about context here. Right. Because I not only responded to his tweet, but I also got on his little Twitter live and made my little comments there. There is a movement afoot in our country where the Trumpian approach to thinking has been used and weaponized for a certain segment of the Black community. And that Trumpian way of thinking is first and foremost a grievance mindset, right? Not that Black people don't have legitimate reasons for grievance, but Trumpism and Trumpism weaponizes grievance, right? And it weaponizes division, right? So this movement, it's ADOS, it's these other things, is based on this idea that there is something so unique to the Black slavery experience in the United States that we should not be tolerating anybody else getting any kind of oxygen or help or support or legislation or whatever, because if they get any recognition or if their suffering is recognized, be they Bahamian or Haitian or new immigrants or whatever, then it diminishes our story because we're always at the back of the line. So you start from this grievance of we're always at the back of the line. And so therefore, the only way we can ever get to the front of the line is that if we push everybody else behind us. Right. And that's a great theory if you're in the majority. But in a country where you're 14% of the population, that's a stupid theory. What that really is saying, well, you Black people, don't you dare connect with those brown Hispanics. Don't you dare connect with those Indians, those Asians that are immigrants. Don't you dare connect with that LGBTQ community. Don't you dare connect with those women who are on fire and allies for you. Don't you do that, because then when you get together, you might be in a majority. And we don't want you to be in a majority. And so we want you to not be in a majority. And that is what ADOS is all about. ADOS is all about, it has to be only us and uniquely us, and our Bahamian brothers and sisters and our Nigerian brothers and sisters cannot be part of our conversation, as if somehow their ancestors weren't slaves too, right? Like
let's put that, because I want to focus today. And this will obfuscate and derail conversations, because ADOS at its foundation is all about reparations.
Yes.
Until there's a reparations check, let's put all of that in check, because until there's a check, I agree. My ancestors, I'm 6 generations here, 5, 6 generations that I can trace back. My father actually did a little genealogy work. And yes, nobody who just came here last week should be getting a check that my ancestors here. Go get your check from France or go get your check from England. That's not the conversation. But what has devolved from that conversation is nobody that's not American Black should have a conversation in this country about race and racism and injustice. And that's wrong, because even Malcolm, whose mother was from Grenada, even Marcus Garvey, who of course was from Jamaica, all of our heroes who preach Black power in this world, Louis Farrakhan is not an ADOS. He's not a descendant of Black Americans. All of the people that you love don't have that same lineage. So let's put the conversation about that over here. That's about reparations. When the check comes, we're very clear. Only these people get the checks here. There's a whole conversation about wherever you are in the world, you should get that check there.
Right. But the problem, Karen, is that they have fast forwarded the thinking about the checks, right, to this point where we can't, like, they're literally talking about why we should support Republicans right? So that was the conversation that was in that Twitter space. People talking about, I'm so mad at Democrats for not coming through that we really should support Republicans. I'm a Republican, my Republican. And I'm sitting here going, okay, hold up. Whereas I can get with you and say, Democrats have a real problem in terms of delivering for Black people. We were 2 votes away from voting rights. We had 48 votes yay, 2 votes nay. They had 50 votes no. What planet are you on that you were trying to say, oh, no, that's that 0 votes for us team that we should be a part of? Like, are you kidding me? And so my comment in that context was about party politics. I didn't even really get into all that ADOS stuff because I know where it comes from.
But we have to, because as soon as you evoke the acronym, it immediately sends people to their corners. And we need to I want to today not send people to their corners. I actually want to lean in and say, Uncle Luke had a point that we should discuss as a family, 866-801-8255, and discuss it with all of the love and understanding.
But Karen, he asked the wrong question. Right. He asked the elected officials or the Democrats, like, what have you done for us? But that's not how corporate America approaches elected officials. They don't say, hey, I'm putting $1 million in your PAC. What you going to do for me? They say, hey, I'm putting $1 million in your PAC. And here's the legislation that I wrote that I expect you to vote yes for. And I put this card up so that your visual audience can see, because back in
so hold it up and hold it tight. Okay, so this is Black Leadership Agenda Coalition.
Yes,
in Florida. This is your thing. Okay, and on the back of it
is an actual agenda.
Okay, let me read it for folk. Let me read it. So at the top is economic opportunity, where you have specific numbers of how many Black-owned businesses you expect by a certain time. You have policing and criminal justice reform, move up, where you have particular deliverables. You have infrastructure improvement. You have education with numbers that cover Pell Grants and vocational and technical and entrepreneurship. You have political empowerment. You have a what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-point plan.
Right. And I added a 5th, which was healthcare. I added one. So I wrote this in 2016, right? I wrote it in 2016 because I'm a lawyer, right? And lawyers write law. We write proposals. We write legislation. And so I was like, look, our problem is that we get mad because Democrats don't do for us, but we don't ever act with it. We don't ever make a demand with a unified voice of exactly what we want. Right? We send people up to Congress to tell us what they can get for us. But that's not how corporate America approaches this, right? They don't send people to Congress in the hopes that Congress does for them, right? They have lobbyists. And we think that our elected official is our lobbyist. Not true. Not true. An elected official's number 1 priority is reelection. It is not getting your agenda across the line. So if they want your vote, you have to be able to say, hey, it's a quid pro quo, bro. Like, you want my vote? Here's the piece of legislation I need you to sign on to sponsor. Here's what it has in deliverables. Here's what it has in costs. Here's how I've written it out in legislative language, and I'm going to put that on you. But we as a Black community don't do that. We don't do it.
Okay, let's get back. So he asked, and I'm also curious about the timing. We're in a midterm election cycle right now. November is going to be pivotal, I think, for this country. And it's going to really shape. Yes, it is make or break. So that he's asking this question, this very prominent figure who is beloved in Florida, who has done a lot in Florida for young people programs. He is invested in the community. He's not a sideline, person. He is somebody that sleeves rolled up on the streets, ask the question, why should we vote? Give me 5 reasons why we should vote. It's curious about the timing. And then I see him aligned with Marco Rubio. Did you see this? Did you see this?
Oh, and I didn't, because that's the thing I know about South Florida politics that a lot of people don't know, right? Is that it does not take much to get Black people to go in an unconventional, let's just put it that way, direction, because they feel so powerless in the state. Florida has a Black population that is as powerless as any Black population anywhere in the country, if not more so, right? Because it is such a diaspora, here. And there is such a clear delineation between Haitian and Cuban and Dominican and Puerto Rican and the Black, and it's like Black, which is usually descendants of Bahamian farmers and so on and so forth. It has this really interesting dynamic. And the truth of the matter is, in Miami in particular, money makes it flow. So if he gets money from the GOP, he can find reasons to support GOP, right? And they know that. Because you're not going to get money in this state any other way. DeSantis has locked down any other capacity for Black folks to get money in this state. So you don't have to play the GOP game to be viable and get anything in Florida politics. But in that context where he's asking us, what have the Democrats done for us? He's not asking, what are the Republicans doing to us?
Right.
He's not asking that. And I'm like, okay. Well,
so let's give us 5 reasons to vote. I mean, there were, Michael Harriot, I thought was one of the most poignant responders. And I think he covered all of the bases, and to the point that I even said, all right, I was going to respond, but there's no reason to, because you kind of knocked everything out of the park, sir. Thank you so much, Michael Harriot, because he did that. But before I read his, please tell me what your, what, I should read it. Okay, I'll read his. He said, Luke said, give me 5 reasons Black people should vote in the next election. Give me 5 Black promises that have been fulfilled by politicians in the last election. We're going to get to that in a second. Mike said, I'll bite. Wait, you want white people making political decisions for you? Number 1. So if we don't vote, you trust only the white people, because if we don't vote, then the white people are going to vote. And do you trust them to make political decisions for you? Number 2, he said, I vote out of respect for my ancestors. Some of y'all will roll your eyes to that because you're like, they're not here. Number 3, Michael Harris said, if the current crop of politicians are racist liars, then leaving them in office seems like a perfectly reasonable solution, right? That's pure sarcasm. Number 4, this ignorant logic applies nowhere else. This pill didn't work. Therefore, we should stop taking all medicine. That's the way this comes off. And he said, number 5, I ain't no bitch. He said, some people really believe this punk ass, this too hard, so we should just stop trying and let white people stay in charge BS. I'm not one of those people. I ain't no bitch. I'm voting because I don't believe that. All right, Pam Keith, what are your 5 reasons?
I have to find it if you give me just a second, but it's very, 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 because I tweet a lot, so I got to find this tweet. But it's very similar and very much in line with what Michael Harriot was saying. But again, I remind you of the context, right? Because here it is. I found it, but I want to remind you of the context. He's not asking, give me 5 ways in which Black people have benefited from Democratic legislation or Democratic acts, right? He's saying, what have they done for only us? Because if they've done something that really helped Black people, but also helped Latino people, that doesn't count, right? That's what he was saying. And I need you to be very clear about that, right? Because in the conversation, they were saying, well, if they pass, infrastructure and all of us get jobs, then that don't count. Or if they pass, help for Pell Grants, that helps us, it helps others, therefore that doesn't count. That's what he was saying. So my answer to him was, here's 5 reasons, Unc. 1, because it's idiotic to give political power to the Klan. 2, because your mother, sister, niece, daughter, and granddaughter will be hurt more than anyone in this country if you allow white men to take their autonomy. 3, because an economic power is in a direct loop with political power. If you lose access to one, you absolutely lose access to the other. 4, because the vote is the only thing that allowed Black people any measure of security in this country. And 5, because giving up your power to the slaver is a slap in the face to Harriet, Malcolm, and every other Black fighter who would spit on the idea of giving up because of hardship, frustration, or disappointment.
Okay. All right, and I'm gonna take it to Malcolm. By ballot, I only mean freedom. And he goes on, and I'm gonna read more from it. But he said, the political philosophy of Black nationalism means that the Black man should control the politics and the politicians in his own neighborhood. No more. The Black man in the Black community has to be re-educated into the science of politics so he will know what politics is supposed to bring him in return. Don't be throwing out any ballots. A ballot is like a bullet. A ballot is like a bullet. I'm going to say it again. A ballot is like a bullet. This is Malcolm X, April 1964. You don't throw your ballots until you see a target. And if that target is not within your reach, you keep your ballot in your pocket. Now, that's where we can galvanize around, well, what's my vote? What does it matter? But there has to be a target. To Pam Keith's point, what are you asking for?
You have not because you asked not. Right.
And the political. Go ahead. The political philosophy, I just want to continue. The political philosophy of Black nationalism is being taught in the Christian church. And does he go in there? And he said, we want freedom now, but we're not going to get it saying we shall overcome. We got to fight until we overcome. And this requires us to, as he said, be politically mature.
Exactly. I was just going to say, there's a political laziness that has befallen the Black community. And I'm not saying that we're not the ones willing to stand in line for 6 hours to vote. We are. So do not get it twisted. I am not shitting on my own community, right? The only reason we have democracy today, what little of it we have, is because Black people were willing to pay the price to show up and vote. But that seems to be the limit of our engagement. Like, we don't show up to count ballots. And we need to. So you want to talk about a strategy? How about getting Black people to be poll workers? Strategy number one. Like, we don't show up at the city council meetings and the PTAs to figure out what the Sam Hill is being indoctrinated into our kids. How about we have a team that is deployed to each city council, each county county commission meeting, so that they are always telling and informing the Black folks what they're doing with our money, right? We don't have people who are constantly reporting back to the community as to what your elected official voted for, voted against, and why that's a problem. We leave it to them to tell us what record they're running on, as if they're going to tell us the bad stuff, right? We don't know because we don't want to know. We want to trust our representatives. They come from our community. We trust them. We believe they have our best interest at heart. And the longer they stay up on that hill, the more disconnected they get from our interests. And it's not unique to Black folk. It's just a game of politics on the Hill.
866-801-8255. I will, we want to talk about votes mattering. Those people in St. Louis, Missouri, who voted for Cori Bush in the 1st district. Here's what they got in return. Cori Bush, fiery. She's going to stay outside the Capitol, sleep on the ground for people who are unhoused. Why? Because she was unhoused. Y'all elected somebody who was from them streets, who understood the problems that that community has. And here's what she delivered. And she ain't been in Congress that long. In 2022, she has 15 requests totaling more than $24 million that she put into the 1st district of Missouri. She did that. That included a $3 million harm reduction center, a $1.8 million life housing project for children and women, for families, a whole center. She put money, $70,000 into an in-school mental health program. She put another $2.4 million into a Covenant House, Missouri, which will help young people who are struggling, and most of them are unhoused. She put some more money into this $250,000 plus into a St. Louis public school district, another into a 911 dispatch system, $684 million. I can go down. I'm going to actually tweet this out because these are action items, right? This woman actually, she knew what the community needed. They sent her, but we got to be more mature, as you said, less lazy, not with our feet, but with our minds in terms of what we require. And we've said this before, people mad at Barack Obama. Well, he didn't do anything for Black people. What did you ask him to do? Lyndon Baines Johnson told Martin Luther King, wait. Martin Luther King said, no, we're not waiting. And you know what? All those civil rights legislation got passed because Martin Luther King forced Lyndon Baines Johnson. He didn't do it out of the goodness of his heart.
No, and the way we celebrate Martin Luther King today is so sanitized, because at the time it was bloody, it was scary, he was viewed as an enemy of the state. He was under FBI surveillance 24/7. He was beaten up. I mean, it was not nice. It was not nice. Right? Nowadays, it's like all of us, yeah, Martin Luther King Jr., he was such a good man. Back then, he was the enemy of the state. So look, I'm not claiming that we need to be enemy of the state, but we definitely need to be rabble rousers. We definitely need to be willing to take on some of the risk that our ancestors were willing to take on. I mean, really, you ask, how do we strategize? How do we plan? Plan number one, are you a poll worker? Because they are lining up our polls with the Trump loyalists that are going to hide ballots and destroy ballots and sabotage machines, because they've already told us they're going to. Are you a poll worker? Are you a counter? Are you signed up and organized to drive seniors to the polls? Are you thoughtful about how you can get your teens to vote? Do you have a plan? Because my thing is that I'm a lawyer and I'm military, so I don't do anything without a plan. Right? Everything to me has to be thoughtful, strategic, and intentional. Everything.